Our next speaker is Professor Alastair McEWAN. Professor McEWAN is Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Research Training at the University of Queensland, Australia. He is also convener of Australian Council for Graduate Research. Professor McEWAN holds a Ph.D. in biochemistry and is, since 2003, Professor of Microbiology at the University of Queensland. Professor McEWAN has an extended experience within research, together with his experience as the Dean of the Graduate School at his university. It is my honor to invite Professor McEWAN to give his lecture, titled Early Career Researcher Development in Australia. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, it's great. Well, thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure to be presenting at this symposium. I really enjoyed my visit to Hiroshima about 2 years ago, and hoping I can be there in person in the future. Okay, well, as I said, it's a real pleasure to be presenting again at the HIRAKU Symposium, and also congratulations on the funding. I'm going to talk today very briefly about early career researcher development in Australia, obviously with a focus on the University of Queensland, where I'm located. Sorry, I'm having real trouble with this. Oh, okay. All right. So I'm just going to take you through the structure of the presentation. I'll say a little bit about early career researchers in Australia, what the landscape looks like. I'll say something about what we're doing for the development of early career researchers. I'll particularly emphasize the support and structures to support early career researchers, very important. And I'll say something briefly about the future. So we have a definition of early career researchers in Australia, and they're people who've completed their PhD in less than 8 years ago. Our system is a unified system where all post-PhD staff are classified as academic staff, but we have different categories such as teaching and research staff, which are faculty, and research-focused staff who are postdocs and research fellows, and many of these would like to move to a teaching and research faculty position over time. And usually only teaching and research staff become tenured in our system. So one of the most important considerations, of course, is that tenured academic staff and their appointment is a major investment by the university. And I think that one of the things that has really become important over the last 10 to 20 years and should have always been important is the support that we should be developing for our faculty for their success. What can we do to support them? We have many postdoctoral researchers at UQ and a considerable number of externally funded research fellows. And one route that we use to transition fellows and postdocs into faculty position is to get them to engage at a relatively early stage in some teaching activities and some enhancement of their career pathways. And so we have a scheme called the Amplify Fellowships, which leads to a fixed term contract at UQ, which can then eventually possibly lead to faculty positions. So we try at an early stage before they become faculty to transition them across if their performance is sufficient and there's a place for them. We mentioned female researchers, and it is a particular challenge, and but it's an important for us to support them as much as we can. We have two programs at UQ. One is the Amplify Women's Equity Program, and the Queensland State Government also provides research assistance to help female researchers navigate periods where they are not working full-time or not working at all during maternity leave and when they have young children. So it's about helping female researchers to navigate across that period. I think is something that we might want to discuss further, but certainly having that flexibility is a really important thing for female researchers, and that's one of the ways in which we can help them succeed. One of the most important things in this context, I think, in terms of developing early career researchers are the development programs that we offer these researchers, support from supervisors and mentors, but also listening to the early career researcher community and asking them what sorts of things would help them succeed. And there are different measures of success as well, I should say. We have a very strong early and mid-career research community at UQ. We have both a central group, but also groups within faculties and departments, colleges and departments, and they bring together lots of ideas, and I'm just showing you a roadmap that they produced, and some of their requests certainly we've adopted in terms of the way we're developing our staff. So I'll just say something now about the development of early career researchers in terms of the programs. We've been in Australia not as, I think, as quick to adopt researcher development programs as, say, the UK, and I'll be interested to hear Jeremy Bradshaw's telling us about this in the next presentation. But one of the better ones that I'm showing you here is a one from the University of New South Wales. It's called Extend. You might wish to take a look at that. And that seeks to describe many of the types of activities that researchers who want to be outstanding researchers need to be able to do. They need to be able to supervise research. They need to engage with their external end users and exchange knowledge with them and get good ideas coming back and feedback. Publishing and profiling is important. Winning grants is also important, and leading teams is important. And they also need to learn to teach. So this is a great, I think, example of the types of inputs that are required to help develop early career researchers. And of course, I noticed that you have an individual development plan. Well, the development plan should be mapped against these inputs in order to identify those areas where a person wants to develop. And that's a discussion point as well. We at UQ have moved down a similar path. I just wanted to highlight the point that the whole of the university should be engaged with these developing the types of activities that early career researchers and all researchers for that matter can undertake. So I just identify for publishing and profiling, our library is a fantastic resource. Obviously, our research office and research partnerships can support staff and not just submit a grant, it's helping them to craft these things. Supervising students is something that's important, and we in the graduate school help there. So it's a partnership between the central divisions of the university and the colleges and departments in developing staff. And I'm just showing you a snapshot. You probably can't see much of this, but basically we have a lot of offerings. And I think it's important that universities map these areas and map these against both the inputs of what they're trying to provide as opportunities for staff, but also map against the development plan as well. After seeing the University of New South Wales offerings, but also the University of Edinburgh, where Jeremy was before he moved to Bath, I went back to UQ and mapped many of these things, and we had a very rich array of offerings which we'd never really coordinated. So I would urge the universities to take a look at those things. You may find that you're offering a lot of things, but it's not as coordinated as it could be. So there's lots of activity there, needs to be well organized. I just want to now turn to talking about support and structures to support our early career researchers. I think one of the most important points is a commitment from supervisors to researcher development. I think it is a very individualized world that we live in terms of these things, but I think there's no substitute for strong mentoring and support in terms of helping develop PCRs and actually turning that vision that Dr. Maley talked about into action. People can help early career researchers develop their vision. So individual development plans are really important, and annual reviews should be much more than just a measurement of research outputs. And so I think what we need is a broader commitment to research development. It won't undermine research excellence, but we need to measure the career outcomes for our ECRs and our PhDs for that matter. So I'm going to suggest that one of the most important things that we need to do is to get our supervisors to take the training needs of our PhD students, but also our early career researchers and junior faculty in mind. So we've actually just starting out on a quite an ambitious change, and I'd be interested to hear people's comments on this. The traditional performance appraisal for a faculty member usually focuses on the quality of their teaching, their research in terms of the grant income and their publication outputs, and maybe commercialization too, how they work within the university and externally in terms of their what we call citizenship and service. But we've added a new domain which we call supervision and researcher development, and we're asking supervisors, senior faculty, to ask about their performance in developing both PhD students and early career researchers. So what do I mean by that? And what things can they do? Well, we know about supervision outcomes. We know whether a PhD student graduates. That's one way to measure this. But also whether an early career researcher progresses. Do they achieve tenure, for example? But these things should be facilitated through structured development discussions. And I think helping a young researcher to turn their vision into action requires support in this context. I won't unpack responsible conduct of research, but it's a given that obviously ethics and authorship and other things should be dealt with correctly. I also want to talk about capability and skill development. I also already mentioned the types of opportunity that that early career researchers can have to build their skills. It's a lifelong learning process. So by mapping the areas that they would like to invest time in, I think having supervisors taking an interest in that is important. Two of them that I think are really important, obviously, is developing teaching skills, but also developing supervisory capabilities. And I think the support from a supervisor who's helping a young researcher to learn how to supervise PhD students and other students in the laboratory, for example, and working with other people is a really important skill that they can benefit from. That experience in terms of advice and that they would receive. What else can supervisors do? Well, I think one of the most important things in terms of getting that vision to mobilizing that vision is the support that you get through networks and other things. And one of them obviously is ensuring that an early career researcher is connected through discipline-based societies or associations and international connections. That might seem obvious that that's something that should happen, but it's not necessarily a given. It's something that I think that senior staff can really help in terms of helping early career researchers to get those opportunities to connect. And also in terms of the knowledge exchange capabilities through discussions with external stakeholders, such as industry, government, the types of people who may be wanting to fund a person's research and provide them opportunity. It doesn't take a lot to take an early career researcher along to a discussion that a senior researcher might be having with an industry partner, and in that way they can learn from those things. So small things can make a difference in developing an early career researcher's engagement opportunities. And lastly, leadership in this can also be important from senior staff, and it's helping groups of researchers can also be possible through organizing initiatives and other things that can help connect early career researchers to the types of things I've talked about in groups. So that's an important element too. So leadership in there. So I would say that it's not just about the early career researchers themselves, it's how we as senior staff help early career researchers to succeed. So I just want to finish by the future in terms of the way the world is perhaps moving. One of the things that's certainly coming back, and it's always been the case, is understanding how to lead and work with a team. Teams of researchers are the ones that succeed, and getting the best out of teams that you will eventually lead as a researcher is really important. So I think that's an important developmental thing that can be learned both on the job, but also through discussion and coaching. I think the other thing is that we seem to be moving back to more mission-oriented research. I know that there are initiatives in Japan, the UK, the US. That again is about teamwork as well as having an individual vision. And those are things that can be important too. And the last thing I think is to move towards an emphasis on quality. I think that the best researchers are those who really think carefully about their work and look for real quality work rather than churning out volume. And I think the emphasis on quality is something that we should certainly be emphasizing in the future. So I'll stop there, and thanks everyone for that presentation. Just give you a quick plug for our campus at UQ on the Brisbane River, and hopefully we'll continue to connect, but it'd be great if you would like to visit once our borders open. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor McEWAN, for your very interesting presentation.